If you've got a few overripe bananas sitting in your kitchen, do not throw them away because today we're turning them into these air fryer banana bread oatmeal bars. They're soft, chocolatey, really easy to make and absolutely perfect for breakfast, snacks or those busy back to school mornings. We're making a big batch of 9 large bars, and I'm also going to tell you how you can store and freeze them so you can make them ahead. And of course, we're making the whole thing in the air fryer. Hello and welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, I'm Becky from Tasty Air Fryer Recipes, where I share easy, delicious air fryer recipes that anyone can make. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, make sure you subscribe and let's get into today's recipe. So starting with our ingredients, and everything I'm using is really simple. You will need 3 ripe bananas, and actually I'll be honest with you, the riper the bananas are, the better. Those really spotty bananas that nobody wants to eat are almost perfect because they're so sweet and they're easier to mash. Then we've got 2 large eggs. We have 200 grams of rolled oats, 100 grams of smooth peanut butter, and 50 grams of light brown sugar. I originally thought about using honey or maple syrup in these, but I'll be honest with you, I didn't have either, so we're actually just going to use a little brown sugar instead, and to be honest, they turned out absolutely lovely. First, get your bananas in a nice big mixing bowl and give them a really good mash. You don't need to get them completely smooth, but I actually quite like having a few little pieces of banana left in there because you don't want any massive chunks. This is also one of those recipes that's brilliant for using up food that otherwise would have ended up in the bin. I feel like we always have those last 2 or 3 bananas that suddenly go from being absolutely fine to completely brown overnight. Once they're mashed, I'm going to add my 2 eggs, followed by peanut butter. I'm using smooth peanut butter because it's inexpensive and easy to find, and we pretty much always have a jar in the cupboard. You could of course experiment with another nut butter if that's what you normally buy, but just keep in mind that different nut butters can change the consistency slightly. Then just give everything a really good mix until it's nicely combined. Now we're going to be going in with the rolled oats, the cinnamon, the baking powder, and that little pinch of salt. Now you want to give everything a really good mix. At this point, have a look at the consistency. You want it thick enough that it's going to hold together as a bar, but you should be able to spread it into the tin fairly easily. Mine needed just a little bit of milk, so I'm adding 2 tablespoons first. If yours still feels really thick, add another tablespoon. But don't go pouring in lots because we don't really want a wet mixture. And now for arguably the most important bit, the chocolate chips. I'm using around 75 grams, but I'm keeping a handful back because we're going to be pressing those into the top before they go in the air fryer. You want to fold most of them through the mixture. Obviously, you can leave the chocolate out if you want these to be more of a simple breakfast bar, but personally, I think the little bits of chocolate with the banana and the peanut butter makes these taste so much better. For the tin, I'm using roughly a 20cm tin that fits inside my air fryer. Definitely check that your tin fits in your particular air fryer before you start making the mixture. Speaking from experience, discovering that your baking tin doesn't fit once you've made everything is not fun. So I've lined mine so we can easily lift the whole thing out once it's cooked. Add your mixture and spread it right into the corners to try and get the top fairly even. Next up, we're going to take those chocolate chips we've saved earlier and we're going to scatter them all over the top. So now they're ready for the air fryer. I'm going to be cooking mine at 160 degrees Celsius for around 18 to 24 minutes. I definitely check them at around 18 minutes because air fryers can vary quite a lot. You're looking for the top to be slightly golden and the centre to be set. But don't panic if they still feel slightly soft. This is really important. Do not keep cooking them until they're completely firm. They're oat bars, so they'll continue to firm up considerably as they cool. If you overcook them now, they're more likely to end up as dry bars. And look at these, they smell so good. As tempting as it is to cut straight into them, we're actually going to leave them to cool completely first. And I know that's probably the hardest part of this entire recipe, but it really does make a difference. If you cut through the oat bars whilst they're still warm, they can actually look undercooked and fall apart. Once they've cooled, they'll become much easier to slice. Okay, so now you've left them for about an hour, they're completely cool. It's time to lift them out of the baking paper. And then you can decide how big you want your bars to be. I'm going to cut mine into 9 fairly generous squares, but you can obviously go for 12 smaller portions if you're making these for children, lunch boxes, or just want a smaller snack. And if you look at the texture inside as well, they're still lovely and soft with these little pockets of melted chocolate. These bars are also brilliant for making ahead. Once they're completely cool, you can keep them in an airtight container for a few days. Or if you want to be organised for busy mornings, individually wrap them and pop them in the freezer. That way you can just take one out when you need it, rather than having to defrost the whole batch. I'd actually let one thaw overnight in the fridge or take it out in the morning if you're having it later that day. And I actually think that making a couple of batches and freezing them would be such a good idea before everyone goes back to school. You've got the sweetness from the banana and brown sugar, loads of chocolate chips, a little bit of cinnamon and that peanut butter running through everything. They're somewhere between banana bread and baked oatmeal, which is exactly what I wanted. And considering how little effort went into them, I actually think these are such a good one to have in the freezer. If you enjoyed this recipe, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe, because I'm sharing loads more easy air fryer recipes every week. And let me know in the comments what you'd like me to make next, especially if there's any recipes you've been wondering whether you can make in the air fryer. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.